Hi, this is Glenn Loury. I want you guys to know that The Glenn Show is moving to its own YouTube channel. If you don't want to miss new episodes, then I'd encourage you, please follow the link in the description and subscribe to The Glenn Show at the new YouTube channel. You can also help us out and help the channel grow by commenting and by hitting the like button, the YouTube algorithm. So that's the announcement. Stay tuned. There's much more to come.
Let me ask you about CAGNY, a Chinese American Citizens Alliance of Greater New York, of which you are president. Did it come into existence to mobilize around this issue? What's the history of CAGNY and of your involvement with it?
Okay. Well, CAGNY is the local chapter, New York chapter for an old organization. And the old organization is the Chinese American Citizens Alliance that was founded in 1895, actually. So a very old group, but we didn't have one in New York for many decades. So New York had one there. It's a very informal group, but when we gathered here, as we formed it here in New York, we thought that we should focus on real issues. So you can have organizations that do many different things. We're diverse too, right? Within a small group over here, but to focus on the issues that were plaguing the Chinese American and Asian American by extension community. And the first thing, most immediate issue was education. So that's how we thought about that. And so this was just if the focus on the discrimination there, and we see it not just in New York, but it's also in other places. So in Thomas Jefferson, in Virginia, in Lowell, in San Francisco, Boston, Latin. We have the same kind of attack, and it's also the same thing was happening also at the Harvard and Yale, the college level, and now they brought it down to the gifted and talented. See, so it really is a major issue, education, what they want to do. And when they see that, well, we don't like the numbers. Gifted and talented happens at 43% in New York are Asians also in this program. So they want to, that's part of the impetus for saying, let's get rid of the entire gifted and talented program. Now that's again wrong. This is the looking at race before all the other issues. Again, just look at the numbers. There are many times the number of kids who can get into it, who are entitled by their grade to get into the gifted and talented program, but there aren't enough seats. So why don't you create more seats? See, there's a lot of false scarcity that's created that from a economist standpoint, you should think, oh, well, why don't you increase the supply here? Now, those are issues that I think that we should be addressing over here. And we took it on us on CAGNY to do that. But there are other things that are related. So when all the attacks happened against the Asians, this is, it's a long plague that has happened. It did not suddenly happen, against the Asians. Asians have been disproportionately, attacked. You could see it from the Department of Justice numbers. And in fact, I think that the Department of Justice numbers, they decided not to report on the Asians specifically in the most recent release, because it actually looked worse than normal. So it was always bad before, and then it looked worse. But if you think about it, if you tell...
Wait a minute. The Department of Justice, which reports about the persons who were victimized by violent crime by ethnic group, have decided not, did you just say, to release data breaking down victimization by ethnicity in order to avoid highlighting the increased incidence of anti-Asian violence? I just want to make sure I understood you.
I don't have proof of that, but it sure looked like that. So I don't have proof.
So.
That's right. Because in the prior years, you did see the numbers, and they'll have a little chart, and you could see that, and you could see that Asians are more likely to be attacked because, I'm not the biggest guy in the room. I know that. So It might be that. And sometimes there are attacks of opportunity, but certainly the attacks have increased when they say, you don't belong here. Okay. That's the same kind of thing that the Asians have faced in education when they tell the kids, you don't belong here, not because they couldn't do the work, not because they weren't interested in doing the work, but just because of their race. You don't belong here. And it goes out into the street. You tell them that early from the schools. You teach them that, and it seeps in. This is the subliminal message. And you go out in the street and we hear the same words. And this is the same thing that happened with the Chinese
Again, I want to make
Exclusion
sure
Act.
I'm understanding you. There's a controversy about Asian, quote, overrepresentation in the specialized exam schools and so on. And there's also an uptick in anti-Asian violence, much of it coming from the Black community. You're linking those two things, are you?
Yes, I am. I think that it is really part of the same kind of scapegoating and race essentialism. If you look at that, if you want to look at people by their race, and you want to say that I'm not doing as well and I'm going to scapegoat somebody else, is that not connected? Is this not connected in education when they want to do the same thing and say that we can't teach the kids in the school? So let's look at the group that in some cases they've done a lot of work outside of the classroom. They go home, they read, they study. And what you do is you say that we can't fix it for everybody else, so let's scapegoat them. And then it goes out on the streets. This is the same thing that has been happening for too long, and it doesn't serve the entire community. We should be working for solutions for all the different groups. And to just say, well, we don't get it right now for this, let's go and attack the other people. That's not the solution. To attack somebody else does not make you better. It's sort of like if I just go into a school that's named either Bronx Science or Stuyvesant, that doesn't make me immediately smarter and able to do equations. That doesn't happen. There are schools in the Bronx where not a single 8th grader can do fractions. Now, that 3rd graders should be doing fractions. And when not a single 8th grader can do it, and you want to say, let's go and take the top 7% from each school or something like that, take whatever X%. That doesn't work. They don't become immediately smarter. You have to go back to what it is about.
You and I could agree, I think, that the fact that there are schools, and New York City is not alone in this respect, where there's vast swaths of the kids who are just not getting effectively educated, is an unacceptable reality in American society, and something must be done about it. So I take your point on that. I have to say this, Wei Wah, which is that there's another side to this debate, which is not being represented in our current conversation. And I want my audience to know that I'm not just touching on this one time. This is an issue that's going to be with us. The Supreme Court is going to hear this suit of the Students for Fair Admissions against Harvard University. This issue is around, and I will be covering it in an ongoing way at the Glenn Show.